The unwavering light on the porch of the small white house at the end of Harbor Lane was born from a silent, seismic vow. It belonged to Evelyn Moore, a woman whose understanding of illumination was forged in the lighthouse tower where she once worked, learning that a steady beam was not merely a utility but a profound language of presence and promise. This philosophy was seared into a personal covenant the day her husband, Thomas, a fisherman with the sea in his blood, sailed out on a clear dawn and vanished into the horizon's silent embrace. That very night, adrift in a grief as vast and depthless as the ocean itself, Evelyn flipped the switch of her ordinary porch light, making a solitary pledge to the unanswering dark: it would remain lit until he returned. This initial act of desperate hope slowly calcified into a permanent state of being, a ritual of constancy where the glow from the bell-shaped fixture became a fixed star in her personal cosmos, a tangible rebuttal to the void that had taken him. She fortified this promise against the world's unpredictability, installing and maintaining a clattering old generator to ensure that neither howling storm nor municipal failure could interrupt the signal, telling a puzzled neighbor with gentle finality, "Some lights are not for convenience." As years layered upon years, Evelyn's personal vigil quietly transcended its origins, weaving itself into the very fabric of Harbor Lane's communal life. The light evolved from a private symbol of longing into a public sanctuary, its warm, golden spill offering silent, wordless solace to a rotating cast of nighttime travelers navigating their own inner storms. It witnessed the teenager pausing beneath it, his shoulders shaking with the raw, universal anguish of a first shattered heart. It steadied the exhausted nurse trudging home after a double shift, its constancy a balm for her professional burden of chaos and loss. It guided the disoriented stranger, its humble beacon a point of reassuring orientation in a confusing world. Without ever intending to, Evelyn had created a secular lighthouse, her porch a way station for the emotionally shipwrecked. The neighborhood, in turn, absorbed this gift, growing subconsciously reliant on its perpetual glow. They ceased to question its reason for being and instead came to rely on its fact, feeling a collective, unspoken comfort in its reliability, as if the house itself, and the steadfast woman within, was keeping watch over their shared world, a guardian against the encompassing night. Within the walls of the White House, as Evelyn's steps slowed and the world outside continued its relentless turn, her outward vigil was mirrored by a deep, introspective journey. Her waiting was not a passive void but an active, disciplined state of remembrance and love. In the quiet hours, she began to articulate this lifelong practice, her hand moving across crisp stationery in letters destined for no mailbox. She wrote to Thomas, not with questions of his fate, but with vivid, sustaining recollections, the sound of his laughter, the feel of his work-worn hand. She penned a poignant, complex missive to the sea itself, her words a tapestry of anger, reverence, and hard-won acceptance of its indiscriminate power. Finally, she wrote to herself, a summation of a philosophy carved from a lifetime of luminous fidelity. In this final letter, she codified the essence of her vigil: waiting is not weakness. Sometimes it is love refusing to disappear. This was her testament, the core truth that the light on the porch had always articulated, that love could persist as a kinetic force, a deliberate, shining act of faith long after its original subject had faded from view. When Evelyn's quiet life concluded one still winter morning, her physical absence created a palpable void on Harbor Lane, a silence where her vigilant presence had been. As twilight gathered on that first evening, the community's gaze turned, almost as one, toward the little white house, drawn by a collective, anxious need. And there, against the deepening blue, it still burned, the porch light, steadfast and golden. Its persistence in her absence was a final, powerful lesson. The next day, the neighbors gathered, not by formal summons but through a shared magnetic pull. The decision was instantaneous and unanimous. They would assume the vigil. They would tend the generator, replace the bulbs, and ensure the fuel never ran dry. For they understood now that the light had never truly been Evelyn's alone, it had become their collective inheritance. It was no longer just a widow's beacon for a lost mariner, but the neighborhood's soul, a shared symbol of resilience, hope, and communal care. In choosing to keep it alive, they acknowledged that the most profound lights are those that outlive their original keepers, transformed from private promises into public legacies. Because some lights are not meant to be turned off. They exist to remind us that hope, like light itself, can be tended, inherited, and passed forward, a single, defiant flame against the dark that whispers, always, I am here. You are not alone.